Welcome to the Eternal ROI podcast, where we share the real stories of workplace transformation. And now, here are your hosts, Will Stewart and Chris Patton.
Welcome to the Eternal ROI podcast. Good to have each and every one of you watching and listening along. I'm Will Stewart, joined as always by Chris Patton, CEO of His Way at Work. Hey, Chris.
Will, good to see you today.
Good to see you.
Man, I'm excited. We have a friend of mine named Tom Gardner, and Tom is the Chief Stewarding Officer and owner, or at least steward, of a company in Wisconsin called Hay Creek Pallet and Hay Creek Companies. He can tell us a little bit more about that, but I think you're going to learn a lot from Tom. He's veteran in the business, and I get a lot of stories that come out of their company and what happens with what they do in that culture. So Looking forward to hearing from him instead of me just sharing what he does.
Hey, that's awesome. Welcome to the show, Tom.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Great to be here.
Yes, sir. So tell us the story. How'd the company start?
Well, it started when I got out of high school. Really, I'm kind of entrepreneurial in my history and in my blood, in my veins. So my father was an entrepreneur. I started out as an over-the-road truck driver, and that's how I came to know the Lord. Was in a truck stop in Boise, Idaho. So I bought a truck and started on with a company and started booking loads and started traveling around the country. And I loved doing what I was doing. I've always loved doing what I was doing. I guess I just moved from one thing to the next, and opportunities came up, and just keep moving forward.
That's great. So have you always had a heart to create a caring culture in your company? You know, as you're growing this company, it's always been like, we want to make it a place that's, open and friendly and welcome to employees.
No, I really haven't. When I started, it was all about me. Was in it for the money. I was in it for what was the next big thing. And I guess things really changed for me. So the trucking company led into the pallet company, which did recycling and rebuilding pallets, which led into new pallets. And then the recycling had a waste stream, which led into mulch and animal bedding and wood fuel pellets. And so just one thing kind of leads to the next. And in 2012 is when life really changed for me. Excuse me, when I joined the C12 group. And that's kind of when I came to the point in my life where I really surrendered my business to the Lord and knew that I was in this for a lot. My reason for doing business changed, and that I was here to serve, and I was here to serve the people that were God put in my path. I had, I guess, I looked at it as there was souls that needed to hear the message of the gospel, and needed to see something different in their lives, and especially in their workplace, than what they'd seen in the past.
So what did it look like before 2012, Tom? Give us some kind of sketch there of the company and what all it looked like prior to that realization.
It really was kind of a turn and burn mentality, if you want to say that. If somebody wasn't working out, you just like moved on, found somebody else next. Kind of like, I didn't want their problems to be my problems. I was kind of, really, as I look back on it, it was kind of like, before we get married, we're very self-centered, and if we want to stay self-centered, we don't stay married. And I felt that's kind of how it was in my business. I wasn't going to stay in business doing it for me and not doing it for the glory of the Lord. And that's really what changed, is when I realized this wasn't mine. Everything I have is God's, and I really needed to kind of surrender that over to Him. He's provided in ways that are unfathomable in my mind, things that I've seen happen with the business and with the people at work. And so, so prior to 2012, I was just doing business for all the wrong reasons, or so I thought were the right reasons, but I'm doing business since 2012 with an eternal perspective.
Awesome. So let's go back just for the moment. You said you joined the C12 group. And
Mhm.
in that process, things changed. Slow that film down a touch, and you go into this group. How long did it take before that realization came? What were some of the very first things that you can remember that you went back to the business and did as a result of that?
Well,
And
that's long ago that it's what's that? Go ahead.
what I'm trying to get to is for someone listening today who may be real close to that moment or has just come out of it or they're right smack in the middle of it, what can you share with them that you went through as those first steps? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. I think the first step for me was to joining the peer advisory group for one thing. The other thing was, I attended a current event, which was, a C12 and
Mhm.
national event, where I had an opportunity to see how other people ran their businesses, things they did in their businesses, and to really look at other businesses, and how they were doing things and why they were doing things and I mean, I think that's kind of, I really didn't know what it should look like. And so as I started to kind of serve my people in ways that we hadn't served them before, to reach out to them, to really, um, it's too often we separate work from home, and
Yeah.
a lot of my people were spending more time, obviously all of them, a lot, and to this day, spending more time at work than they are at home. And so as we think, well, leave that at home. That's your baggage that belongs at home, and this should be separate. What I really saw was, we need to figure out what we can do to help our people grow and develop. So one of the things that we did, we didn't even have a mission statement at the time, is we wrote our mission statement, and I wrote it based on a book, the business card. You're familiar with the book, but it was kind of based on that. To see, it wasn't just about handing out your business card, but it was actually having a mission statement and having core values that you really truly lived up by. The mission statement that we came up with was striving to honor God in all we do, helping people develop, pursuing excellence while growing profitably. So it's really putting the people first in your business is really the first step. So we're a company that's grounded in the values of caring, honesty, respect, integrity, social responsibility, and thankfulness. And it's how we conduct our business and how we reflect on our employees, who is our greatest asset. And up until that point, we hadn't looked at it in that light.
Yeah. So you're in the C12 group. You start to realize there's a whole different way to view the business. You start going down this path, lay out the mission statement. How did employees react at first?
Like any other employees, you can,
They bought in instantly and suddenly realized you've had a life change.
They carried you on your shoulders. On your shoulder.
Oh, yeah. I don't think you wouldn't expect them to do that, and so what you want to see, what you do see, is gradual change. And so even though there was a change in how we were doing business, even though I said things different than what I would normally say things, they had to, we'll believe it when we see it, kind of a mentality. And they really did, because we did start making changes. We did start doing things. We did start turning our attention towards caring for our people. One of the first things we did as a corporate chaplain. Wow. And that was new to me. It's like I didn't know what a corporate chaplain was all about, but we hired a corporate chaplain, and of course, God's given us the best corporate chaplains He had available, and they've been fantastic. And so each one, we're our last corporate chaplain just left to do a full-time ministry position, so we're waiting on our next corporate chaplain. But that was the first step for us, was corporate chaplains, to actually have somebody like, our guys are like, who is this guy and what's he doing talking to me about my personal life, and so it was having somebody on staff that wasn't somebody that was working on day-to-day basis. They're here once a week to talk to them about their life and their issues and what's going on and make the connections. It so that was really our first step, and it was a great step to take.
Yeah.
In 2012, how many employees approximately did you have? What was the size of
We
your
were
company?
probably around 20
Okay.
at that time, roughly 20 or less.
Mhm.
And right now we've got 45, 46 employees.
Awesome.
So, to be honest with you, because of where the corporate chaplain started, I would be willing to bet we were probably closer to 12 employees, but we had some drivers, we had different divisions. And so, our 45 that we have now are everything all together, but the corporate chaplain really makes a point to come in contact with everybody in the business.
Yeah, they do a fantastic job. We had them in ours, still
Mhm.
do, but yeah, critical part. So, what were some initial decisions you made, if you can recall anything, maybe business decisions or employee related, where maybe these employees who initially said, "We'll believe it when we see it,"
Mhm.
started recognizing some bigger picture decisions you were making to say, "Hey, that doesn't make sense. Why would he do that? Or why would they make it this kind of a decision?" And
I
chaplaincy is
guess to
certainly
be
one of those, right? Because this chaplain does
Yeah.
not help with the pallets.
Right,
Right.
right. Yeah, chaplaincy and our chaplain doing some training with us, some financial piece stuff that
Mm,
the first chaplain did. I think honestly, it was probably taking out some bad apples. As
mm,
hard as it is, the hardest thing that I would say that any business owner, especially in a Christian business, struggles with is letting people go.
yeah.
And maybe that was I had one manager in particular that was just awful, awful, awful to people, and I just had to get him out of the business because he just did not fit. It's like we can't have a caring culture without having people on the team that are caring. And
Yeah.
so I think that was one thing. The other thing was changing our hiring practices. If we had to hire for culture and stick to it no matter what. I've heard it in my group several times. I've said it. I have a hard time letting this guy go because he's bringing value by what he does, but he's taking away value by how he treats others in the business and around him. And
Wow.
so until we could change our hiring practices, so we bought into the Lencioni ideal team player. And the funny thing was, if you had a chance to read that book, it's a great book. It's one of my favorites. But if you've had a chance to read that book, he writes in a story, and if the person isn't humble, hungry, and smart, he calls him the jackass of the business. And so the gal that I had in management read that book, and she sat at my desk and looked me in the eye and said, "Tom, you're the jackass." And
Wow.
I didn't take offense to that. It was a great opportunity for me to self-reflect. And I thought, I just went before the Lord and said, "Man, if I am, I can't. How can I run a Christian company and um, say the things that I'm saying and do things I'm doing if I truly am the jackass?" So
Wow.
it was a moment for me to self-reflect and say, if this company is going to be what God wants it to be, I'm going to have to be who God wants me to be first. And so I had to change my priorities. It turned out that I wasn't at least I don't feel. She felt I was. I don't think I was. But if I was, I made some changes to
Yeah.
make those. But one of the changes was she was the one that had to go because she wasn't humble, hungry, and smart. And we struggled with that for a long time because her and I had gone down a road for a long time together.
Yeah.
But the toughest part of growing a business is growing your people. And if your people don't grow with the business, and you gotta make some changes.
Yeah.
Fortunately, she made the change that needed to be made, which was to go and find another opportunity.
Yeah.
And we literally took off. The business took off without her in a leadership position. So it was good.
That's a big deal. So I
Yeah.
want to go back for a moment and just make a clarification, because I know what you're saying, and I just want to make sure the listeners hear. So when you say we're hiring for culture, and then
Yeah.
you're saying we're a Christian company, what you don't mean is we only hire Christians. What you're saying is
absolutely
right,
not.
right?
Yeah.
You're saying we found a cultural map in Lencioni's book with the Hungry,
Right.
Humble, and Smart, and we've said
Right.
these are the characteristics that are going to make up the culture that we operate in, and that's how we're
Yes.
going to hire. Faith is
Yes.
irrelevant to that hiring
Yes.
decision, right? It's just
Right.
you're running the business based on these principles. That's your faith, but it's not who you're necessarily hiring for, right? So
Right.
just speak to that.
Yeah, and that was one of the biggest things that I personally had to overcome, because I thought, you're running a Christian company. It's a company full of Christians. It's
Yeah.
like going to church on Sunday. Nothing could be further from the truth. You hire people that are humble, hungry, and smart, and literally, I pray God bring the people to Hay Creek that you want at Hay Creek, and take the people out that you want out of Hay Creek that don't fit here. And He has been faithful to bring us people time and time again that fit the culture. And it's not just you pray for it and He gives it to you. You got to use discernment. You got to pray about it. You got to take time in hiring. You got to have guidelines to hire by. I mean, it takes work on our part.
Yeah.
It's not just pray and it happens. It takes work to make it happen, but it's hiring smart and not just, I interview people all the time that I know can do the job, but if they cannot fit the culture, if they aren't humble, hungry, and smart, if they aren't going to add, it's kind of like a friendship. You're in a friendship with somebody, and either that person is a giver and there's a give and take, or if they're only a taker,
Doesn't
the friendship
last.
isn't going to last. And it's no different with employees. You can't
Yeah.
just take people that are here just to get a paycheck. They got to be here. They got to have a servant-hearted demeanor, or a servant-hearted leadership, or they want to help other people in that type of thing. Or even if they have so much as a drop of that, you can help them develop that.
That's good.
Absolutely. So as you started implementing all of this in your company, what was the effect? How did you see your company change, and how did you see the employees change?
I guess you just see people, when you start to look at people in a different light, you see different things in people. So you change how you look at things, and all of a sudden things look different. And that's really what happened, is we saw people in a different light. And then we look for, we're good finders, of course. We want to see positive things, and let people know that we truly care about our people. And they just from starting from the corporate chaplains, and now we have a caring team, and we truly care about our people, and we want to see them succeed. And I think you start to get feedback from your people. You start to build that culture. You start to get people on the team that really care about other people, and that gets to be contagious. So just how you look at things, and then all of a sudden things look different.
Oh,
That's crazy.
absolutely. So as this started getting implemented, are there any stories, anything that's kind of a top of mind that you think about, like how creating a caring culture has helped your employees?
Yeah, well, one of the things that one of our first corporate chaplains is, we had a guy come to work here, and within the first week, he lost his father in an industrial accident. And the corporate chaplain made a point to drive, I think 4 hours, maybe 5 hours, to go to his dad's funeral. And it's like, what company does that? This guy's, he just he bought in. not only, it's not only did he buy in, but he's caring for other people in the same way that he was cared for. Another thing that we do every Wednesday, we just made a point to, and this wasn't easy to start, but we do a lunch and learn at 11 o'clock every Wednesday. Now we do it at 11 o'clock because my guys start at 5 a.m. and at 11 o'clock they're off for lunch. So we're having lunch at 11, and the lunch and learn is basically a Bible study. But the way that we do it, and I was taught this by the pastor that started it and led it at the time, was we do a storytelling Bible study method. So we tell the story of the Bible in our own words. We help them rebuild it, kind of tell the story back to us, and then we read it from Scripture, and then we have a series of about 20 questions and how this story pertains to their life today. So it's used in a lot of different cultures, and even in cultures where people are illiterate, they can understand the story enough to tell the story back, and then we read it, and then so that I have seen guys have discussions about things of God in their life that have never stepped foot in a church. Again, guys that saw God working, had God working in their life, and they never really knew it.
Wow.
Things had happened. One of the guys had cancer, and we were talking about, God giving us second chances. And he says, yeah, I'm reminded by that because I still got my PICC line in my chest. He was the same guy was in an end-for-end rollover accident, a car accident. And the police went to his parents' house to tell his parents that they had lost his son. He was in a body bag at the morgue.
Wow.
And he woke up.
Wow.
So, without even knowing it, in Christian cultures, we call it sharing our testimony. Without it even knowing it, he's sharing his story of God giving him a second chance without the Christian lingo that we all know of sharing our testimony. So really he's sharing his life story, and that's what our testimony is, about how God works in our lives. And I mean, this guy he is totally not the guy that came to work for me. He's his life has been changed through this lunch and learn and this time that we sit down every week. Now, I will say that just like when I joined C12, I had my pre-C12 day, which meant that everything that could possibly go wrong in the business went wrong before the C12 meeting, and we had our pre-lunch and learn. On Wednesday morning, I could count on the fact that we're going to have an attack.
Yeah.
Something.
You just wanted to show up at 11, right?
Oh my gosh, I couldn't even get there, and that's why it was so great to have a pastor come in and lead that initially. Because I couldn't even get there initially because so many things that go wrong. And it's like, you just kind of count on it, brace for it, but don't give into it.
You said it was hard to get it started, and that's what you're talking about.
Exactly. That's the hard part to start because we are in a battle. And as a believer that Satan is going to do everything in his power to stop anything good that's going to take place, and lives are not going to get changed if we as owners don't persevere and push through and say, hey, this has got to happen no matter what. I got to set aside this time. I got to have people in place. I got to have a backup, whatever it takes. I got to give my lunch and learn the same kind of priority as I give my customer that needs an order to get out the door, because
that's good.
Way more important. We can make that order tomorrow. We can't do that lunch and learn tomorrow. We could put it off, but you know how that stuff goes. You put it off, you lose it. You have to persevere and push through and get it done.
So let me ask you this, Tom. One of the first questions that pops into my head as I hear you say that is, okay, great. So you're telling me that you're going to put the same priority on a lunch and learn that doesn't produce any revenue, doesn't save any expense, as you would on a customer. So over time, if you're choosing one versus the other, which you didn't necessarily say, but if they start thinking that way, how do you even maintain a profitable company if you're always focused and putting so much intensity on that? That just doesn't make sense to me business-wise. I can hear someone saying.
Yeah, well, yeah, and you will hear someone say that. But who are you relying on? Are you relying on yourself to do this job? Are you relying on God to provide what it is that he needs to provide to make you profitable? So I think, part of that is, um, Satan will do anything to take our focus off of things of God and things of eternity, things that really have value to life here, but life the hereafter, life in heaven or whatever, so
Right.
it doesn't make sense if you think about it from a business standpoint. Like, are we going to get payback from this? Is the payback going to, when the banker calls to collect the payment, are you going to say, hey, so yeah, this didn't work out, we couldn't make this order, so
I'll give you $3,000 and 2 lunch and learns.
Yeah. But
it doesn't work.
No, it doesn't work. But you'd be surprised when you make that your priority to serve your people and to teach your people and to share with the word of God with your people, lives are changed. If you spend all your time worrying about your business, and it's not like we're not profitable, but it's not like I'm not a prosperity gospel guy.
Yeah, I was just going to bring that up. It's great.
Like, I am not a prosperity gospel guy. Because you have a lunch and learn doesn't automatically make you profitable. It's not, you're going to share the gospel. You're going to have a corporate chaplain. It's not going to automatically make you profitable. We have gone through some tough times, but we are not relying on ourselves. We're relying on God, and God, like I told you before, God, I've prayed, and sometimes I've double prayed and over prayed and prayed during the middle of the night. God, I got to have people. I can't do it without them. What am I going to do here?
Yeah.
Just send people, whatever that looks like, and there's other things, we give away a lot of money in our business. Now this is really something that doesn't make any sense. So in 2015, I started wood fuel pellets on a year that propane, 2013, 14, there was a shortage of propane. Everybody that was in the wood fuel pellet business ramped up production, and there was a lot of production. So I started at the heat of that production. So I'm coming into the market with a new product, had no track record. I had no idea, I had no idea of a lot of what I was doing, but I was just kind of relying on God to, like, whatever it takes, just provide, we'll make it happen. I did have a lot of other things going on that kind of helped, with the pallets and stuff, that we could survive through that. But what we decided to do, and as a team and in prayer, is give away to, because I serve orphans and missions, orphans and widows through Donshire Ministry. We decided to give away 10% of our failing business to orphans and widows. And it was incredible what we saw God do with that. All of a sudden, the phone started ringing, the sales started coming, and it was getting my priorities straight about, this isn't mine, this belongs to the Lord. It's his. He can make it successful or he can take it away, and he chose on my behalf to make it successful. And we did it by giving to orphans and widows and cutting the check, and the phone started ringing, and we started making sales.
Wow.
It was a tough decision to make because we weren't profitable doing what we were doing. So it was a tough call to make, but we did it. And can you imagine? So my gal is like taking the calls, and I said, Sandy, can you believe this? I don't know what's happening here. Well, she said, well, when God tells you to do something, Tom, you better do it.
Yeah, no,
because he's providing. And so it was a testimony for her, to see what God was doing on the 10%. And we, I honestly, in a business that wasn't, I didn't have 10% to give away. There wasn't that kind of margin, but it's what God did with it and made things happen. So
that's awesome.
Amazing. It's amazing how letting go and letting God run your business his way, it's counterintuitive to people who are entrepreneurial minded, right? And it's counterintuitive to the world's philosophy of always crushing it and hustling and, just stay awake and worry and work and all those things it's a balance, right? You got to work hard.
You know,
Right.
Will,
Oh, yeah.
I just had an epiphany. I think it's God's sense of humor that he puts strong-willed, determined, and driven entrepreneurs into business and then gets them to realize that they don't own it, can't control it, and can't do anything about it. I think he's giggling the whole way.
Yeah, I think so.
The pellet business for me was kind of like, I took it back to my C12 group because I had made decisions in the past without vetting it through my C12 group. I took it to my C12 group and prayed about it. And I said, I really felt God telling me this is the way to go. And, like do the pellet thing. And so it's tough when you get into a business and you're not selling anything. It's like, so I take it back to my group. One of my guys in my group said, "Hey, Tom, get rid of that equipment. You ain't using it, sell it. I'm going to take a hit on this, I went back on my knees and said, God, what do you want me to do with this? And I just like, well, not in an audible voice, but it's like, oh, Tom, I could just hear God say, oh, Tom, I thought I told you this once before. Why are you questioning me again? I said, go in the pellet business. And he has taken it to an over $1 million a year in sales. But as much as, even when I went back to my group and one of the guys in my group said, just sell it, get rid of it. You're not making any money on it. It's like, when I prayed about it, God's just like, I told you once, persevere, stay with me in this. And then to the point where I've started to giving away my sales, in 10% of my sales to orphans and widows. And then the business is just that segment of business took off and it's done really well.
That's incredible.
So
what's the thing you wish you knew 10 years ago?
Just choose one.
I am. Yeah, how powerless I am. How important it is to make this God's business and not my business. That's really what I wish I would have. I wish I would have started out at Surrender instead of trying to do it on my own. And don't get me wrong, I'm an entrepreneur at heart. I think I got this. I'm going to do this. I know what it takes. I just got to work harder. I put in more hours. I got to make better decisions. I just wish that at some point, and I got to learn this over and over. It's not, it hit me 10 years ago and I still got to do it to this day. I just got to say, God, this is your business. I know you're going to handle it. I know you can make it great, or you can take it away. It's your choice. I'm going to be as faithful as I possibly can to what you're calling me to do.
I love that. What's a book or other resource that you'd recommend that other people read?
Well, I'm a Lencioni fan, as you can tell. Humble, Hungry, and Smart got me hooked. But the book from Lencioni called The Motive, and Lencioni says himself, it's his favorite. It's his best. If you don't read any other book, read that one. Now that's the author speaking, and you guys know Lencioni is a great author. Yeah. And so I bought it I do my core business presentation for my group in December. I bought it for my group as a gift. And it's amazing how many of those guys actually read it, and it's The Motive is really what it says. It talks about where you fit in business and where having the right perspective.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. That's the book he says that he wished he had written first that everybody should read.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good one.
Yeah.
What do you think the takeaway is today for people who have been listening? And you've been very generous with your time, and I really appreciate that. But what should be the big takeaway for people who have been listening?
Owning a business, running a business, being in a business will strengthen your relationship with the Lord. And if it doesn't, I think, it really comes down to surrender. It's really what the Christian life is all about. It's what running a Christian business is all about. It's like giving it to God. And that's why I use the title of CSO. I'm the Chief Stewarding Officer. This is his. It'll always be his. And it's really, kind of giving whatever it is that you have to God.
I love that.
Excellent.
Well, Tom, it's been incredible chatting with you. Thank you so much for your time and telling us your story. It's inspiring, and I really enjoyed getting to know you a little bit better.
And I appreciate your transparency.
Yeah.
You've just been
thanks, guys.
You've put it out
Sorry,
there.
I get a little bit of emotional.
Do not apologize.
No,
Do
that's
not
good.
apologize. we know how weak you guys in the pallet business are. So you guys are known for your, wearing your heart on your sleeve. So don't worry about it on our end.
Okay.
That's good.
All right.
Awesome.
Well, thanks a lot, guys. I appreciate your time and I appreciate you doing this. And I hope people are inspired to think about their businesses in a different way.
Excellent. Appreciate that, Tom. Thank you for listening to another episode of Eternal ROI. If you like what you heard, we would love for you to take a moment and leave us a review and share an episode with somebody you know. If you are inspired to begin bringing the power of God's love into your workplace, take a moment and check out our free assessment at hwaw.com. It'll only take you a few moments. It'll give you a snapshot of what your company looks like and maybe some ways to move forward. Just click on the link in the show notes, and we'll see you next time.